Hey guys, this is Allie with iMore and PixelFix, and today we are going to look at how to replace the vibrator assembly in an iPhone 3G or 3GS. Regardless which one you have, the process will be the same. The part is actually the same. What you're going to need for this repair is a suction cup to remove the screen, a 00 Phillips screwdriver, a pry tool or a spudger tool. I personally prefer types like this, but a little plastic colored spudger tool will work just as well. And a stem removal tool or a paper clip will work just fine if you don't have this. So the first thing you're going to want to do is power off your device. You always want to power off your device before opening it up in any capacity. It's worth noting this will not fix if your switch is bad. I've seen some of these where the switch will stop working or it doesn't stick very well. That would be the actual cable or the switch running to this. This will replace if your phone just stopped vibrating. So if it's on vibrate and you have no vibrate functionality, you're going to need to replace the motor, and that's what we're going to look at doing here. The first thing you're going to want to do is take your 00 Phillips screwdriver and remove the 2 dot connector screws on both sides. I've already done this to save a little bit of time. And after you've done that, we're going to remove the top front assembly. And the way we do this is you're going to position the suction cup above the home button. And the reason we do this is because you've got some cables up here attached to the logic board that you don't want to tear. So how I typically do this is I put my hand here so these cables won't come up, and you just want to pry up enough to get the bottom up. So this shouldn't be too hard. You just have to pull up gently, and the bottom of the assembly should start to pop out. As you can see, if you hold your hand up over this side, you just want to pull the bottom up. So I typically just hold my hand around here, and if you've watched other weekly mod videos, same thing. And then once that bottom pops up, you can go ahead and remove the suction cup, and then we can turn it around. You can see in this top corner, we've got a couple cables we need to disconnect. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop up these cables, number 2, number 1, and then you've got a little clipped number 3 cable underneath here. And we've got to lift this cable up. There's a little white clip, just pop it up, and then the number 3 cable will slide right out too. And then we can set our front aside. We're going to need to remove a couple more cables. The number 4 and the number 7 cable down here. 3G users will not have this number 7 cable. That's the only difference. So you'll only have to remove the 4 cable. 3GS users will also need to pop up the number 7 cable. And then up here, we've got a cable with an arrow pointing to it for 5 and 6. So we're going to remove those cables. And next what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to remove our SIM tray so we can remove our logic board. I've already removed the SIM tray. It's located right up here. You just use your SIM ejector tool and pull it out. And now we're going to need to remove our logic board. And to do this, we've got 8 screws holding it in. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3GS users, you're going to have to pull this cable aside. It's going to be under a do not remove sticker. 5, 6, 7, 8. This screw up here has a little clip underneath it on top of the camera. So if you have a magnetized screwdriver, it should come up with it. Otherwise, you can grab it with your finger. There's the screw. And then you've got a little clip that you'll want to reinsert when you're reassembling. So don't lose that. And try to keep these screws in order because they do have different head sizes. We're going to pause to remove the rest of the screws, but first, once you remove the camera screw, this camera will actually pop up to the left. So what you're going to want to do is take your pry tool and just pop it up like so. The cable's attached, so don't try to pull it apart, just pop it up. And now we're going to remove the other 7 screws that hold the logic board in. Okay, so we remove the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws holding the logic board in. Now we're just going to need to pull it up. The easiest way to do this is there's a gap in between the dot connector assembly and the logic board right here. If you inch your pry tool in there just a little bit, you should be able to grab hold of this logic board. You're going to want to make sure it doesn't get snagged up on any cables, but once you can get a hold of it, it just slides right out. I typically try to just pull this cable back a little bit and move this one over to the side. And then take your fingers, and just carefully wiggle it back and forth until it comes out of the frame. Now that we've got that out, you can see that we have access to our vibrator assembly right here. There's only 2 screws holding it in, so all you're going to do is unscrew these 2 screws, and they are the same size, so if you get these 2 mixed up, it's not a huge deal. They are both the same size. And then you should be able to lift this vibrator assembly. You might want to use your pry tool. It sticks in here a little bit right out of the device. And there's your vibrator assembly. And then you're just going to pop in the new one, and we're ready for reassembly. Okay, so we went ahead and replaced our vibrator assembly with a new one and put these 2 screws back in place. Now we're ready to put our logic board back. And just a tip, I typically take this number 4 cable and fold it underneath here, just underneath the chrome. It tends to hold it down a little better, so then you're not trying to maneuver the logic board in here with that cable in the way, and then it gets stuck underneath the logic board. So what we're going to do next is, the way you're going to want to put your logic board in is up at your SIM tray. You need to slide it underneath there. So you're going to want to gently apply pressure so it slides into place correctly. And wiggle it back into place. And you might have to try this a couple times. It's not the easiest logic board in the world to get in here. But once you've got it in there, you should see that the screw holes line up correctly. An easy way to test this theory is to put your SIM tray in. If your SIM tray goes in easily, it's in correctly. If it does not go in easily, don't force it. You probably have the logic board lined up incorrectly. So back it out and try again. So now that this is in here, we're going to push our camera back down. And we're going to wait on these cables because you've got some screw holes underneath them. So now what we're going to do is we are going to put back in the 8 screws that contain the logic board. And don't forget this little clip that goes onto the camera. You're going to need to sit that in there before you screw in one of the screws that holds the camera down. Okay, so we went ahead and replaced the 8 screws that are holding the logic board in. So now we're ready to put back down our cables. So we'll start over here at the bottom. Number 7 cable, again, 3G users will not see this, only 3GS. Then number 4, which is your dot connector cable. Up here you've got your 5 and 6 cables. Push those back down. Okay, now we're ready to reassemble the front, which this part's a little bit tricky. I'm going to try to do it so you can see what I'm doing. The number 3 cable, I find it easiest to use a pry tool to kind of guide this one in. It might take you a couple times to get it in here. I found the easiest way to do this is to start to get it in there and then wiggle it back and forth a little bit. And I'm going to have to put my hand on this side so then I can actually guide this in here. Okay, and then we're going to wiggle this back and forth a little bit and make sure it's in there. And snap back down that white clip. And we're going to put this cable back down. And the number 1 cable. And you should feel these click into place. You might not hear them, they're not very loud, but you should feel them click into place. And then once you've done that, we're ready to put back down our front. Always put the front in first, or the top, because there are little grooves. And then slowly drop down your frame. And then once that's flush, you can replace your 2 dot connector screws. And that's it. That's how you replace the vibrator assembly in an iPhone 3G or 3GS.